I was thinking this has got to be in the top 10 most confusing movies ever made.
Inception is very straightforward in comparison to this.
The opening of the film, I guess the most important takeaway from that whole scene is like, yeah, someone's watching him.
Yeah.
Then he's selected for this program. He briefly gets an explanation about what it is, but he doesn't really know what it is, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then that sets him off straight away to try and find the arms dealer, right?
Yeah, and then it's a lot of like jumping between exposition characters. Clemens Posey first.
Yeah, and then Michael Caine.
Yeah.
And then he explains about how does he know about I thought he was going to talk about the long ago in Burma, we burned down the forest. It was the size of a tangerine. But that sends him off to look for the woman.
The single, or Priya is her name, but he's looking for a husband, right? But even when he gets off the boat, right, after doing his chin-ups on the windmill, the sea windmill, he gets off the boat and just walks straight into the car. Like, it's all like laid out very well. But like obviously there's people working. There's heaps of people in this agency that he's working for. Heaps.
Yeah, there's heaps. There's a whole army, as you find out at the end. But they're kind of operating in the shadows almost.
Yeah.
So what was the term they kept saying? The code word to tell if you're in TENET or not?
We live in a twilight world. There are no friends at dusk.
Because he says that in the opening scene, but it's obviously his future version of him. So what I was confused about is one of the many things I was confused about. At what point is Robert Pattinson someone who knows what's going on? Or is he like that the whole time?
The whole time, because he, for John David Washington, meeting Robert Pattinson, recruiting him is in his future, but it's in Robert Pattinson's past or whatever, right? So Robert Pattinson knows the whole time, and he knows that. It's clear he knows more than what's going on. I know they keep saying it's not time travel, but that's the easiest frame of reference. And is this like Back to the Future or like Prisoner of Azkaban, or is it like friggin' Avengers? It's definitely not Avengers multi-timeline stuff.
Endgame kind of did the same thing as this, where whenever someone starts explaining it and you as an audience member go, okay, I'm going to understand it this time.
Yeah.
They kind of say, don't worry about it too much.
Yeah. And
it's like a get out of jail free card.
In Endgame, they're just like, oh, it's like Back to the Future, and they just reference some other pop culture. And in this, it was just, I feel like this, you don't really care all that much in Endgame. You kind of get some idea from Tilda Swinton and what's kind of going on, but outside of that, that's all you need to know. This, you are listening super intensely, trying to understand, and yeah, it's not as clear as you wish.
How far back do we go? Like, in terms of the timeline, can you tell me what happens first in the timeline? Does the Vietnam, where she jumps off the boat, is that the timeline-wise, is that the first chronologically, is the first event that happens?
No, because Michael Caine says 12 days ago, that thing blew up, right? So that happens at the same time as her jumping off the boat, right?
Yeah, so that's the first event.
Vietnam, yeah.
Then when's the Opera House happen?
That has to happen before. That has to happen before he meets Michael. Sometime between him meeting Michael Caine and But how long is he out on the bloody thing for?
So there's Kiev. So there's Vietnam, then Kiev, then everything from that point on is linear, right?
Yeah.
So Italy, when they meet, he meets Thingo in Italy. So the whole film is 14 days from start to finish.
I don't know if it's 14, but Michael Caine says X amount of days ago there was a blast or whatever in that city. Yeah. But then they still got to go ahead of that anyway, because then she tells him about Freeport. That's the name of this tax-free area where the stuff's being stored in.
They stored they rammed the plane into a Freeport.
Correct, yeah, a Freeport facility. Yeah, because it seemed like there's multiple of them.
Yeah, and the Freeport also has these doorways.
Well, that one does. It seems.
Yeah. Well, so did the other one, the shipyard.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, that was a Freeport, right? Yeah.
Because he goes through. So you go through, and then the only way to come out again is to go through
another one. Yeah. Because that's what they do. And by doing that, they basically travel back through time.
Yes, it's essentially what they're doing, right?
But
But it's like, the way I was thinking about it is, it's like when you have a cassette tape, instead of shuffle, there's that symbol that's like the
Yeah.
You're getting to one point in time, and then you're jumping in the turnstile, and then you're going back in the opposite direction, back this way, right?
Let me see if I can find you. There was a great diagram I saw someone draw. Like someone had done it based on like shots from the trailer, but it was very good. Yeah. So this go through this door, then you walking in reverse until you go back through the door, and yeah, you're back. Basically, travel back through time X amount of.
What the fuck is this stolen from the?
No idea, dude. No, someone like this 6 months ago. Someone did this, but then like right at the bottom, there's like something from the screenshot as well. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. There's some more stuff here around like how cars would work.
Well, that's probably one of the biggest things I struggled to get my head around was once they're inverted, how they're moving.
They move, yeah, it's all relative, right? So others will see them backwards, right? But they don't because they're living in their world. So they're moving forwards through that scenario, which is weird.
Yeah, I mean that's the understatement of the century.
Yeah, but like, and the thing is that I reckon this movie would be very. Don't get me wrong, I really liked it, but he could have done slightly better job, like explaining it, maybe, like, or just letting people breathe it in and understanding it. I feel like it does go pretty hard and fast through all, and you know, it's fairly vague until he does get inverted, and then walks his way back all the way through to the free port at Oslo where he's battling himself. I think that is the moment of true clarity.
And that's the best scene in the film, I reckon.
Yeah,
like that,
easy.
Where he goes back and fights himself.
Yeah, very good. And like even when he's like complaining about his arm hurting, and then it starts dripping, and then you kind of start remembering that he stabbed the security guy with the pick. I think it's fairly like once things start to click, it makes sense, right? I think it's more I think the stuff around, you know, people from the future sending stuff back, all the elements that are like felt very Looper-ish. I didn't feel like they went into depth on any of that stuff, and same with the army stuff in the third act.
Yeah,
like I got the purpose of what I get vaguely what they were trying to do and then I get that the only reason that they were sending in two like an inverted and non-inverted army was that's because what the bad guy had done. Yeah, I just felt like that whole like the agency and who's working for who, and even at the end where they're like, well, we're gonna have to kill each other or kill ourselves or whatever because they had the what do they call it, the algorithm.
Yeah, it's the third act is like there's so much money on screen. You just like, holy shit, they've gone to so much effort, but the clarity is just not there.
And even in the last, like, I got that Robert Pattinson kind of saw something bad was going on, so he kind of took what he needed to do and inverted or reverted himself. But that whole, it was so closely shot, like when they were standing on each side of the cage and Kenneth Branagh is talking to him through the thing, like whenever whatever happens, it all happens so quickly you don't really know who's who. And I think initially the idea was that they had to wait for the guys to disarm or whatever the bomb before he killed her, but
then they just let it blow up anyway.
Yeah, but the guy was, you know how the guy was like trying to pull that thing, so that had something to do with the fact that maybe the bomb wasn't armed, or
so at the end of the film they end up with separate pieces of
the algorithm, whatever, this MacGuffin thing.
Yeah, the MacGuffin. That's what it is, the MacGuffin.
But that's probably the weakest, in my opinion. That like it's visually very cool. Don't get me wrong, but there's no real.
No,
I don't get the sense of urgency. I don't really get the scale, or like it never really seems like there's a lot of enemies there. It just seems like a couple of bunkers and dudes shooting rockets out of a building and.
No, and everyone that they're up against is kind of like a faceless enemy. It's like the Inception snow level. It's like that.
Yeah, but you never really see any of like the enemies doing any of the cool inverted stuff. I know it's all point in time with which depending on which team you're following. Yeah, like a lot of cool like reverse explosions and all the car stuff was kind of neat. But yeah, it's all kind of nameless video game kind of level. But yeah,
the good arms dealer or the one that's
Priya,
real. She
her role was not overly clear to me, especially when she came back at the end.
Or like particularly,
or like when they were walking and she was explaining all about the organization and the future and the algorithm and all that stuff.
So that last scene has no one that you've seen written about the Robert Pattinson being Max grown up thing?
No, there's heaps of people talking about it on Reddit, but I have until I read that and like what kind of made you think that from the film?
Well, I think it's the way that they kept saying repeatedly, "Who are you?" and he never answers it, right?
Yeah.
And then he's got a couple of scenes with her where he's like really like caring towards her,
Yeah.
and for no reason. And then at the end, he's doing the narration. Like Robert Pattinson has the last say in the film. And again, this is really hard to talk about this without seeing it again.
Yeah. But like, even if whether it is or not, like you're never going to find out.
Well, you never get to know. You never get to know, because that's why I'm like waiting for a moment, because Nolan loves having that. It's like the spinning top.
Yeah.
But he's really good at ending films. But this was kind of the ending of the way this ended was a bit of a dud, I thought.
Yeah, like because it didn't really make a lot of sense to me. Why, other than wouldn't there be tons of people that need to be killed? Like if they're just trying to clean house of people who know about Tenet.
Like when things finished, I'm like, there's a lot of unanswered questions here. I actually thought this was his attempt at starting a franchise. Don't you think you could make like 3 of these movies?
You could, but I think a lot of the like, how do you up this? Like,
but you could totally take he's introduced the idea of inversion.
Yeah.
He's said that there's lots more story to tell. Like the character even says, "We don't meet for a while yet. Your journey, you're only halfway along your journey." And then I'm like, well, shit, you could make another movie.
I was going to say, I can't see him doing sequels, but I guess he did Batman, right? So
that's what I thought. I thought he would never do that. But what if it was his own franchise that he's kind of made from scratch? I honestly think that the amount of world building that he's done, it lends itself to a series like of films. It doesn't. I feel like you wouldn't do this much world building for one movie, surely.
Like, how does Michael Caine, like, what is his like background in all of this? Like, he's a cool cameo. Don't get me wrong, but like, does he know about Tenet? Like, he obviously knows about the guy's an arms dealer and all that kind of stuff.
That's the other thing, is that they make out that the painting or the forged painting is like a big deal.
Yeah.
So your brain's getting invested trying to listen to the details when the painting's really not that important. When I come out of it, the biggest questions I had were, is Robert Pattinson actually the son?
Yeah.
How far in the future are they? I just want to know Neil's story. Like, I just want to see his story from start to finish of like where he came in.
I want timelines for all these people. Like I don't know if you see those infographics where it just kind of shows like maps of where people have gone. That's what I want of all the characters, especially like Kenneth Branagh, Elizabeth Debicki in the final sequence, right? Because she's obviously exists in that timeline twice, but she's not inverted at that point, right? When she kills him, she's not inverted. So she's traveled back to 14 days because he's making the decision that he's going to blow things up. But clearly it hasn't worked because it's in the past. Oh, look, I've gone cross-eyed.
You know, it'd be funny. They make a sequel and it's just exactly the same name. It's spelled the other way. They just call it Tenet.